Hey kids, this is part 2 of the infrastructure as code and configuration as code demo. We're gonna today take a look at spinning up the VM, installing Apache, installing Git, and pulling the Apache configuration file out of Gitlab. Um, Pretty much the same way we did in the first demo, except today we're going to spin up our VM in Amazon AWS instead of VMware. And so the way we're going to do that, we'll take a look at the script first, is we're going to use a very similar bash script to the one we used in the first demo. And the first thing we're going to do in that is call a playbook to create the VM. And in this case, we've created a new playbook to create an EC2 guest. And let's quickly hop over there and take a look at that. And the way this works is it uses the Ansible EC2 module, much like the other playbook uses the Ansible VMware module to create the VM. And so we're going to set up some variables, tell it what instance type, create a new security group, and we're just going to name it the same as our new guest name. Tell it the image ID that we want to use for the base, and this is a Cent7 image. It's a public image. We're using an existing key pair that's already in the account. We're going to put it in the US East region. We're only going to create one. And in the My User Data section, this is where the cloud init process happens. And so what we've done is basically just copied all of the custom setup that we had in our Kickstart. If you remember from the first demo, we used Kickstart under Cobbler to kind of preload the Ansible user SSH keys and do yum update. So we basically just copy the Ansible portions of that, and we're putting it in our user data section, which gets executed on first boot as part of the cloud init process. And so here you'll see is we're adding the Ansible user, creating a home directory, copying the keys over, and then giving him sudo access. And so that's basically doing the same thing that Kickstart did. So under tasks, the first thing we're going to do is create the security group, allowing port 22, port 80, 443 from everywhere. Then we're going to launch the new instance, passing it the variables that we had defined up above. We're going to register those facts, and then out of those facts, we're going to take the public IP address, which gets assigned, and we're going to add a DNS record, an A record, to our public DNS for this guy. And this command right here, we're using Cloud DNS as our public DNS provider. So we're going to use this command through the Cloud DNS API to create our A record here. Type equals A, host uses guest name, and then record equals public IP. And that's going to make it easy for us to SSH to the new VM with the name that we're going to be giving it when we run the bash script. Much the same way that we did in the first demo, except in this case, we're out on the public internet, and so we have to set a record DNS record in a public DNS, whereas in the first demo, we were using our private DNS on our private network, and DHCP handled that registration for us. And here, one other difference is here we're using the Ansible module to wait for SSH to come up. So we're doing, Ansible does kind of a loop here against the IP for port 22. We weren't able to do that in the private, on the private network, because with some weirdness with the way the DHCP compiler booted it, it grabbed a localhost IP, and for some reason it was resolving to a localhost IP. And so we had to come up with the ping loop in the bash script, but pretty much does the same thing. And at the end, we're going to add an instance tag and give it the name of the name we passed in the bash script. All right, after all that happens, we're going to wait for it to come online. Then we're going to run our playbook to install Apache, install Git, and grab the Git configuration, the Apache configuration from Gitlab. All right, let's give it a run and see if it works. We're going to run our script, and we're going to give it a fun name. Let's call it Captain Crunch. All right, now what this is doing is going out to Amazon through the API, reaching out and creating those instances. Let's go over here to Amazon and do our refresh and see if we can see. I do see a new one pending here. Let's see if we click on him, if we can get any details. Captain Crunch, there he is. Inbound rules, we're allowing import 80, 22. We can't see that because I can scroll up at 443, just like in the playbook. We see our public IP here. See, it's a Cent 7 AMI. All right, looks like Amazon thinks he's running. Hop back over here to the script. It looks like he's waiting on him to come online. This is just to make sure that the DNS record gets dual NS lookup. We can't find it yet. Did I spell that right? There he is. Now he's in DNS. Okay, so we should see him now. See him in just a few seconds. We see that the IP address here is the same as the IP address here. So that's good. It looks like our DNS entry worked. And we've moved on. We're now setting up the Apache. We're installing the web server. Firewall did not disable because it wasn't enabled to begin with, apparently, in this AMI image. It's a little different from the image we're using in the lab on the private network. So we're installing Git, and now we're grabbing Git from httpd. The httpd.conf from Gitlab, much like we did in the first demo. And let's go back and take a look at that and see what's in there. And I'm in the wrong groups. And our httpd.conf. Okay, so we'll see the things that we added at the beginning last time are still there. Chicken nugget, McDonald's, etc. And so if we do an SSH onto Captain Crunch from Jerry, which is our Ansible and Jenkins host in the lab, we should be able to get right in. There we are, because we've put the SSH keys on there in the boot. And let's take a look at there we go. See the new file's been pulled in and plopped on our Amazon guest. And let's go see if he's coming up. And Apache's working on the Amazon guest, just like it did in the lab on their VMware. And all we had to do is change a couple of files here, create a new playbook for EC2 support, and update the bash script slightly. All right. Thanks, everybody.